He's working on another painting, but I'm here to tell you, don't do it. Mama, don't compare your chapter 1 of homeschooling to my chapter 20. I'm at the end of the book. I'm at the final stage. And when I come on and I talk about my kids and I show the things that they're doing, it's after decades of practicing. So just in this space alone, you can see some of my youngest son's creations. Okay, this one's in progress. I can't wait to see this done. But don't do it. Don't compare your chapter 1 to my chapter 20. Here's why. Back in the day, when it was the beginning, this same kid, the Lord saved for last, because there needed to be 6 of us to make sure that he made it all the way to adulthood. The child was so busy. I can't tell you how many times I wouldn't lose him, but he'd be gone in the house. Where would I find him? On top of the shelf, in the pantry, reaching up to get the vitamins, on a shelf tucked behind toys in his closet. My favorite, not so favorite, was where's Steven? Turn around and he's inside the dryer. This child was lucky to survive. He's the same child that tormented his older brothers. Tormented. Oh my goodness, our final 3 of 5 kids are pretty close in age. Right now they're almost 17, almost 19, and 20. So they're close. We call them the 3 Musketeers. Started by calling them the 3 Little Indians, but that was becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, so we nipped that one in the bud and changed it to the 3 Musketeers. That youngest child, the one that's the wizard of all things creative, the rower, the one that's going to Olympic development camp, the one that loves boys in the boat, the one that's a writer, a painter, a sculptor, a crocheter, that one. Tormented the next brother. Oh, if he could get under his skin, he was the king of it. I taught him to crochet to help his hands stay quiet during read aloud. I let him do things with his hands because he wasn't ready to read until he was 10. We have a Steven mental clock when we go on car rides. To this day, even at 16, he can only handle about 3 hours in the car before he starts looking around to see who his first victim will be. I have a very distinct memory of going on a big car ride and then eventually taking him out of his car seat and illegally buckling him next to me in the passenger seat. And when that didn't work, he and I got out of the car and we walked silently, hand in hand, while the car trailed behind us. Chapter 1 was messy. Oh my goodness, messy. This is the child that painted my bathroom with nail polish while I was helping his older brother do algebra. I mean, oh my goodness gracious. So when you look around at the chaos around you, Mama, I'm telling you, I know, it's crazy, especially if you have more than 3 kids, and especially if they're young. And most especially if you try to cook and clean and teach and be like the amazing Pinterest perfect mom out there. Oh my goodness, those littles can give you a run for your money. Keep them safe, keep them fed, keep them loved, keep them busy, and when all heck breaks loose, take a deep breath, exhale. Here's a trick for you. Don't just count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Instead, imagine a birthday cake in front of you, and you pick the age of your child. If they're 5, there's 5 candles on that birthday cake. You get really frustrated, take in a deep breath, and blow out the birthday candles. You get really mad, cover that cake with your number of birthday candles. My candles cost more than the cake these days, but that's okay. Don't compare. The enemy to homeschool is comparing. What are the kids in the public school doing? What are other third graders doing? What are my niece and nephew doing? What are the neighbors next door doing? What are her kids doing online? You gotta remember, I'm super proud of my kid. So guess what I'm gonna show you online? The stuff that I'm super proud of. Am I gonna give you a tour of his bedroom? Should I? Do you wanna see? He would kill me. I can't do it. It's so bad. The reality is that homeschool's messy. Messy. Oh my goodness. These are real kids with real attitudes, with real emotions, real wants and desires and selfish habits, right? Living right next to another sinner, you and me, or their brothers, or their sisters, and then they can bug each other. So I'm super proud of my kids, as I should be, right? I've invested over 25 years into raising these kids with my husband, and we're proud of all of them. The historians, the champions of life, the writers, the musicians, the scientists, the artists, they're all amazing people who can still be Twinkies on every Tuesday and sometimes on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Don't compare what you're doing at home to what somebody else is doing online or next door. Instead, what you're doing is you're observing and then cherry picking. What is it that you want for your kids by the time they graduate high school, right? Do you want your kids to be pursuing their passions? So what does that look like? Somebody like me is gonna tell you, don't try to make your kids paint and sculpt and crochet when they're 4. Just because it worked for Steven, it likely will not work for your kids. That's what his personality, his skill set, his energy level requires. He's the one that I needed to stand outside here in my driveway, kind of right there, and I would stand there with a book, and he would ride around his bike in circles. And then I would go, yellow light, red light, and he would stop, and I would read a paragraph or 2. And then when he'd start to fidget, I'd go, okay, green light, go, and he'd ride. Be creative. When you're online and you're looking at everybody's chapter 20 or their highlight reels, don't look at your kids with disappointment. Your kids are amazing too. They're extremely creative. They're extremely passion driven. If you don't know what they're passionate about, that's your first treasure hunt. You have the next however many years until they leave home. You have that long to discover what makes their heart pitter-patter, and then to start to feed them things. Picture books, videos, resources, recipes, music, adventures that cause that to grow. You've got this. Don't compare your kids to mine, my kids to yours, to our neighbors. It's the enemy, and it robs us of joy, and it causes us to add things to our lists and our days and our kids' lives that are not good fits, right? If I tried to make my kids, I don't know, embroider while riding a ripstick, which is a special kind of skateboard, and following a straight line, they probably wouldn't like that. Well, Stephen might like that, but they probably wouldn't like it. They wouldn't thrive. So whatever your kids are passionate about, you keep feeding them stuff that fuels that passion. So I'm still going to be bragging and sharing about my kids because I'm super excited about them. But you got to remember where I am in the homeschool journey. I'm nearing the end of having all my kids at home. And so they're showing the fruit of a decade or 15 years of feeding into their passions. So it looks amazing because they've been practicing for a super long time. You hear Isaac play his guitar and you're gonna be like, wow, I wish my kid played guitar. Well, that kid practiced no less than 4 hours a day for 10 years. Not an understatement. So now he's a master guitarist. It's amazing. Same thing with my academic brain. He studies and he digs deep and dives deep into things that he's learning. Same thing with my writer. Well, they're all writers, but the same thing with my screenwriter and director. He leans into his stories and spends hours upon hours upon hours writing and developing. And our other son was a reader and a lover of history and just an amazingly creative person. So the enemy to homeschool is comparison. So don't. Instead, be a fruit picker. Look around when you see something that you're like, that looks amazing. Her kids actually are respectful and diligent and kind. So I'm going to ask her questions about some of the things that she does in her day. That person is always sharing amazing recipes. Maybe she has some tips on how I can integrate more nutritious food into my homeschool. That kid just wrote their first book at 8. How did she do that? Maybe you can ask questions about what that creative process looked like. So become a fruit picker. Become someone that looks for gray-haired wisdom and gleans things that worked for them, or if you're really lucky, they'll tell you things that didn't work. So you can check those off your list yourself without having to make those same mistakes twice. And that's it, right? Don't compare. It's the enemy. Instead, just delight in the things that your kids do and share them in a place where they can hear you brag about how kind and helpful and sincere and responsible and diligent and disciplined, how much grit they have, how much courage they showed, how much they didn't wilt when they were faced with a problem. Let your kids hear that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, tell them that their painting is beautiful and their sculpture is amazing and that book is really creative. But make sure that you're paying more attention to their character and their attitude, and they can hear you talk about how amazing they are. At the end of the day, that is secret sauce. Have a great day. See you in the next video.